TCM.com and Barnes & Noble DVD locations.
Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. Up next for us on TCM, we have Chapter 8 in the documentary series, The Story of Film, An Odyssey. Well, last week we took a look at the European New Wave movement from the 1950s into the 60s. Right now we're going to have a look at the impact that movement had on various filmmakers around the world, including Roman Polanski, Andrei Tarkovsky, and Dennis Hopper. And back to introduce this next chapter is the writer, director, narrator of this 15-part series, Mark Cousins. Welcome again, Mark.
Thank you, Robert.
Now, this was such an interesting era and so many things changing. I have to ask you, when you're putting a documentary together, and you've got 15 hours, basically, to cut it down, how, though, do you only get into that 1 hour all that happens in, say, a decade?
It's very difficult. What we're about to watch lasts an hour, but the first cut of it was 182 minutes, so it was 3 hours. So we had to lose 2 hours.
You had to lose 2 hours.
Yeah, and so we had to crunch it down, and it makes it quite hectic. But then the 60s were quite hectic. There were so many things going on, and I saw this bit of the story as a kind of road movie. So we start in Eastern Europe, and then we go to Calcutta, and Calcutta was buzzing with cinematic activity. So it's like getting on an express train and going really fast around the world, this coming bit.
What country was the first country to really be influenced by the French New Wave movement?
Well, when you think of the Eastern Bloc still under communism, they were desperate to find new ways of making films that were about protest, that sort of smuggled messages into their films. So the Czechoslovakia, Russia, Soviet Union, they watched the French films and loved them because they thought, this is modern, this is a way of us making rebellious films within our societies. You get to the Soviet Union, a filmmaker like Tarkovsky, who's deeply serious and religious, and you're not really allowed to be religious in the Soviet Union, but he thinks, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make passionately religious films within my society. So it was almost like the energy of France fueled Russia, etc. But then when you get to India decolonized in 1947, this massive country, chaotic, and the Indian filmmakers in the 50s think we can try and describe our societies with this new film language, and they did so brilliantly.
Is there a particular thing about this era that fascinated you?
I think it was the bravery and courage of the directors. They were, just as when we talked about the 20s, you remember we said that filmmakers were dealing with new ideas.
Right.
They were like virgin territory.
Right.
Once again, these directors in this era were being brave. They were going where nobody had gone before, coming up with new ways of editing, new ways of being serious, etc., particularly in India. And that's what's exciting. A director called Ritvik Ghatak tries to do something very new, and I think he does. And I just salute the bravery of those filmmakers.
I think it's also fascinating that so many of them did it thinking nobody was going to particularly notice. Exactly. They were really doing it what they wanted to do and make a personal statement, what they didn't know that everybody was going to be watching.
And doesn't that make you more disinhibited if you think nobody's watching?
Exactly.
Like there's this famous thing, people say dance as if no one's watching, and if you dance when no one's watching, you dance more joyously.
Right.
And I think those filmmakers did the equivalent.
Right.
They did something because they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
And they did.
And nobody was going to pay attention.
Yeah.
And we did.
We did.
So let's have a look. Here we go. The U.S. television premiere of Chapter 8 in The Story of Film, An Odyssey. This chapter is subtitled, New Waves Sweep Around the World.